Hello and welcome, everyone. I am thrilled to gather here and have this conversation. My name is Melissa Elmira Yingst, and I'm honored to be moderating this month's leading celebrating Women's Her Story Month. As we dive in, I just wanted to express gratitude to the three of you, Clara, Jennifer, and Nancy, for your willingness to say yes to this conversation and an expression of gratitude to the interpreters for being here today as we voice over this conversation. So, you just being here means everything to me. Those of you that are watching, whether you yourself are leaders or an aspiring leader, or you just believe in the power of deaf women's perspective and insight, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. We will have a conversation about leadership, yes, but also about legacy, identity, and what it means to lead differently. Are we ready with that? All right, so before I ask the first question, if each of you could just briefly introduce yourself, your name, your role, and where you're from. And we'll begin with you, Clara.
Sure. Hello. My name is Clara Baldwin. This is my name sign. I am from Alaska. My current role is the Assistant Director of Special Education for the Anchorage School District. We call that the ASDs. I oversee the Anchorage School District for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children. This is my fifth year in this role. I've had great experiences, great learning opportunity. Thank you for having me here today.
And we're thrilled to have you as well. All right, Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Hello, my name is Dr. Jennifer Herbold. I live in beautiful New Mexico. I'm the superintendent for New Mexico School for the Deaf. I started as a teacher, worked my way up, and now I am in my fifth year as superintendent, moving on to my sixth soon.
Wow, and New Mexico is stunning. Alaska, New Mexico, and California. All three of you work in stunning states. All right, Nancy.
Hello, my name is Nancy Hlibok Amann. I'm the Director of State Special Schools and Services Division at the California Department of Education. I'm in my fourth year of this role. Previously, I was the school superintendent at the School for the Deaf in Riverside. My current role is to oversee three state schools, two schools for the deaf in Fremont and Riverside, as well as the blind schools in the whole state of California.
Awesome. All three of you have various roles and different years of experience. I would like to ask you, looking back to the very beginning, what was that defining moment or person that made you believe that you could lead at this level? What was that like?
This is Clara. I look back from when I was in seventh grade. I graduated at the California School for the Deaf in Fremont. I'm actually originally from the Bay Area. Looking back, I really had a great experience in the school. It was a very language rich environment. There was a lot of strong deaf language models within the environment on campus. There was one person I remember. Her name was Shirley Dart, and this person worked overseeing the middle school cottages. It was kind of a dorm program. In Fremont, they call the dorms cottages. And this woman, Shirley, saw the potential in me. I was just in seventh grade. I was very serious. I
Wow.
didn't have a lot of confidence. I, was not athletic. I wouldn't be picked first to be on any teams, but she saw something in me and she chose to pick me to go to a national literacy camp, NMLC, at the Maryland School for the Deaf in Frederick. That particular summer, she picked me and one other student. And the day that she saw the potential in me was life changing.
Oh,
After that, I was able to reach for the stars because she saw that in me.
I love that. I mean, you went way back to a very young age. What a pivotal moment, truly. Wow.
This is Jennifer. For me, I wouldn't say that there's a specific moment. It's really hard to say there's specific moments because life is just a collection of different moments.
True.
I remember being young. I don't remember the age. The context is a little bit fuzzy, but I do remember, I think it was Gertie Galloway, the first female superintendent, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
I remember she said something, and I think she maybe had been at Gallaudet or something. And I remember seeing her, the first female superintendent, and that really stuck with me. And for some reason, that meant something to me. Another time, will never forget this. A friend that grew up in Iceland came to the Kendall School in MSD in Gallaudet. And my friend had moved from Iceland to go to Kendall School. And she said, I wish that we had a female president in the US. We still wish that to this day. But she said that then. And I remember telling her, that's impossible. And she said, you know what? Iceland has had female presidents since the 60s. And I remember being like, oh, it was a big mind shift for me. And I realized how I had sort of diminished my own self-worth in thinking that, oh, women can't be presidents. And so these little things added up in my life. And I think that many of us, and it's not just true for me, we were administrators, sort of reluctant administrators at first. I always thought I would be a teacher, but I got pulled into different situations. And then I decided to apply for the job later, the superintendent job. And that eventually led me to that role because I had volunteered to do these different things along my life path. A lot of people supported me to get to the place where I am. And so I decided to go for it. I really love the school that I'm at. Everyone that knows me knows I love New Mexico.
Wow. Yeah, Nancy, did you have something to add there?
And this is Nancy. I want to add to her comment. The past really has a big impact on who I am today. Different moments stick with us. That's true. But I often ask myself the question of, wow, at my age, I still wonder about what triggered me to come to this field that brought me to where I am today. What was the big catalyst to be in an administrative position? I didn't want to be like this in my younger years. I'm from New York City, so I was exposed to a variety of different things in my daily life. I saw lots of different ways of living, but I think it comes back to personal experiences that impacted my own internal fire, that desire to do something. At the Lexington School, that's where I attended, and then I moved on to a all girls Catholic school with no supportive services. I was on my own. I sat in the front, tried to get by, was there for 6 years. And during that 6 year period, I remember that there was a lot of days of just being lost in my own thoughts. And that sort of built that internal fire. And it wasn't until much, much later through my work in the schools saying, oh, we have to do these different things. And that brought back memories of where I had come from. I feel like I had to act on those impulsive moments that I had had at that all girls school. And now I find myself advocating for those younger generations based on my experience as a young person. That gives me that fuel I need. And so when people see me as a woman, I am a woman, yes, but what is the point of me being a woman? I'm a woman, and if people question that, the problem is not me, it's them. So having that strong conviction that I can is important. I really give that recognition to my family for their support. They said, no matter what you want to do, do it. They didn't try to get me to go into a different field. So when I made comments like, oh, I want to make my instead of my own business, my parents would say, great, go do it. They didn't caution me about financial risks or anything like that. So that was really my overall perspective of where I got that motivation and drive as a woman to get to where I am today.
And I see what you are saying regarding female leaders. And okay, so what? However, the reality is in today's climate, more than ever, quite honestly, this is the kind of conversation that needs to take place, the recognition, and from my perspective, celebration. There are so many out there that just simply don't believe that deaf, much less a woman, can do this type of job, that can fulfill this type of leader. And so I'm so grateful for the three of you and where you're at, your experiences, other people that showed up for you, family members and others, to reach this stage in your career. So, out of curiosity, how would you define your leadership style? And how much of that is rooted in your journey as a deaf woman?
This is Jennifer. That's a tough question because I think leadership style is always evolving. It's interesting as a woman to try and figure out how we can prove ourselves. That's tough. Or how to be firm and stay firm. That's tough because people will think that, oh, they can kind of manipulate us and then they can. And then they're like, oh God, look at her. So the standards are very different as a woman. And I remember experiences like that very clearly where male leaders, I was being told no, and then a male leader, would have the same conversation and would be told yes. So, to honest, I just think, okay, dude, come on. Really, I said the same thing, but he got a yes and I got a no. Maybe he said it a little bit clearer. I don't know, but I'm sure you all have experienced that yourselves. Nancy will know this well. I've gotten into compassionate systemic leadership, and that has really had a huge impact on my style, leading with compassion. Even those that, maybe grate on my nerves, they're all coming from someplace as well. So how they think about things, how they are approaching different things, I can help with that. Perhaps people have assumptions. We really have to just kind of care for humanity, help us think about each other's in a human way. And when I frame it that way, I can continue in the work that I'm in and helps me. So the challenges that I approach, I really like to keep that mindset. I still have to be tough. That is true. I have to make decisions. It's always coming back down to the best interest of the student. That's the priority. So I find myself weighing different things, right? And we care about the school, but we also have to think about what benefits the student in the long run. So when I think about a leadership style, I can't think of a specific thing, but compassionate leadership is a big impact on how I handle things.
Thank you. I like that. Compassionate leadership. I like that.
This is Nancy. I'm in the same program and I feel the same way. That style has changed my life. Before I learned about this, even though I was able to kind of make do and get by, there was a lot of self-doubt as a female in certain spaces. I am proud to be a woman, no question about it, but that self-doubt on others' perception of me was heavy. Excuse my language, but I didn't want other people to think that I was a bitch, people thinking like, you dare talk to me like that. If I said something and another person that's a man says it also, that person gets the attention. That person gets the yes. It doesn't make me mad, but it really makes me feel upset because it it's automatically belittling me in their perspective. Now, when it comes to hearing people, I feel like this is ironically less. In the deaf community, we're very harsh, we're very judgmental, we're very oppressive sometimes. And so I have to remind myself that we are all experiencing oppressive moments at different times. It doesn't mean that I excuse certain behaviors. It just means that I really lean into my patience, into my compassion, try to explain myself better, try to perceive my actions from their view. I always feel like it's more work to be a woman, but I also think on the flip side, I'm blessed to be a woman because women have that additional leadership skill, which is those soft skills, the ability to really maneuver a situation. We're better than
Communicate.
men in doing that. Exactly. I have many men in my life, many men, and I love them all, but I handle people better than they do. I can be egotistical about it, but it's true. And compassion has helped me really refine my ability to develop relationships with some things that, I'm still learning to relate to. So you are right. The compassion system of leadership is a great set of skills that you are able to develop in this leadership style.
If I could just piggyback on what Nancy just remarked on regarding how exponentially more difficult it is being a woman. And I'm a pretty new leader. I mean, as an administrator here in the hearing dominated world, in that pace, I haven't really acquired those skills as at a deaf school just yet. So my experience has been a little bit different, but I will say currently where I'm working, it's mostly male leaders. And they don't have to give their rationale as to why they make certain decisions. A no is ample enough. People do not question, they don't argue it. However, if it comes from a woman, we have to give that rationale. We have to give justification. We have to go into detail why there is a no in the first place. Just an observation of mine. And then group discussions. We might say, well, we might interject with certain concerns. Again, men keep it very succinct, yes or no, that's it. I think it was my second year looking back, and I was still very new. I lacked the confidence as a new leader. And my former supervisor called me in and they asked me if I knew what serving leader meant, if I knew what that concept meant. And so they had asked somebody to leave the program rather, and go to another district job because they felt like they weren't serving leadership. And that day, I was stunned to receive that information. And as I did my homework, I now have that kind of anchored in who I am. First and foremost is it's students. Those are our paychecks, really, at the end of the day. We serve students, we serve their families, we serve the community at large. Our staff are essentially stuck with me. The district is massive. There are 97 different elementary schools, 13 middle schools, 8 high schools. I mean, perhaps 8 special ed programs. And they may not like their leaders, right? And they can easily transfer from building to building, from facility to facility, but others don't have that advantage. So if I don't want to teach high school, right, maybe you can move over. However, it feels like I need to work a little harder to ensure that we're working with our staff, that there's that cooperation, that we are in sync as much as possible, that I keep an open door so that they know they can reach out to me, they can see me in person, they can text me, FaceTime me, that they don't have to see me outside of their contractual hours. And if I don't respond, it means I'm not available. But if I do, that means now I'm crossing my contractual hours to give you that time. It's a small community and it's very difficult to retain our teachers. Teacher retention is so difficult, especially with those that are proficient in sign language. I cannot have somebody that can barely sign their way through a classroom. We need somebody that's proficient. So that makes it much more difficult. And then being a woman on top of that, the irony in education, it's female dominant in the deaf ed field, but it feels like sometimes men just show up and they just say no or yes. And then all of a sudden, nobody argues it, nobody questions it. And I just find that truly captivating. The fact that that still happens today.
This is Jennifer. I want to piggyback on something that Clara says. I think about that a lot. In the last few years, it's been pretty interesting. Someone was saying to me recently that women should not apologize. They're too
I
apologetic.
know.
But what's wrong with that? We are more compassionate as
Mm-hmm.
women. If there's a lot of traffic or if I'm in another meeting and I'm rushing, I typically will say, "Oh, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for waiting." I think that that's what everyone should do
Mm-hmm.
instead of just coming into a room late and starting the meeting like you weren't even late. It kind of brings this attitude of like, you have to wait for me. I don't want to give that vibe. And so you
That's a
have
good
to
point.
balance out that yes and no with confidence as well as being compassionate. If people want to ask you why you're late, then explain it instead of just being like, no, one answer and then moving on. I know when someone said women are very apologetic, I was like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't apologize. But then I was like, no, I am somewhat like that. No answers here, but just some thoughts that I've had.
And if I could just speak to that leadership training, they were all developed by men. Why do we have to adhere to that? Why do we have to
Right.
adhere to those ways? Why don't we create our own expectations? And people, their ability to share their emotions, that gives you longevity, truly, as opposed to those that are stoic, those that stay on that trajectory of just yes or no, because they're still thinking about it, they're still pondering those decisions,
Hmm.
but we're processing it transparently with a team out loud. So I think we really have to look at the gains as to what we do and how we do it, but it's defeated by society is still run majoritarily by men. Most administrators out there are white men. You do not see too many females out there. The numbers are less than.
Yes. Well, I really want to thank the three of you for being transparent about your leadership journey. You all shared a lot of things that I'm sure many women, including myself, can relate to. For example, apologizing. Oh, yes. How can we instead be more firm, but sensitive at the same time? Being sensitive is a strength, it's not a weakness. So, yeah. Clara mentioned something, or maybe it was Jennifer, that the education system is female dominated. And for some reason, within the leadership positions, those are typically occupied by men. So the three of you are really breaking into that space with a lot of unknowns. So I would love to just ask the three of you, was there any moment that you can reflect on that you were able to say, wow, I've really succeeded in my role, or were able to create change that you were proud of? Maybe there's many small moments, but is there anything that you can think of? What comes to mind first that explains a successful moment for you as a leader?
I think for me, uh, going for 3 years with 100% teacher retention in Alaska, it was unheard of. I mean, the
Yes.
last 3 years we've had that. All teachers are happy. They're remaining with us. I know it's not going to last forever, but there we are today. And then recently, well, very soon, we will have our 1 year pilot project in completion. It's an online school only for the state of Alaska. So we're really honing in on just our state. But something I started to reflect on a couple years ago, the natives here in Alaska do not want to come to the Anchorage school. They just simply do not. I think there's a lot of cultural trauma that's based on boarding schools, right? Families want to keep them in the home. Yes, my child is deaf, but I don't want to send them to Anchorage. I mean, a busy city, high traffic, many cars. People are considered to be rude here. You don't hunt in Anchorage. So they prefer to keep their families together. And so we've tried very hard to recruit, but unfortunately, attrition is just a real thing. And we've had to get creative. And so we thought, what about virtual schooling? And we decided to pilot this with one student from a very remote area. I think they have less than 100 people in this village that they live in. So it's not even a town, it is a village. And so in this area, this village, and I've never met this student before, this is in Bush, Alaska. They were only receiving 3 hours a week of schooling, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And they have acquired so much language. Receptively speaking, they have progressed so much. They're communicating more at home from just 3 hours of schooling. 3 hours means so much to this child. Imagine how much more is out there that we could provide to these students and how much more success. We need more funding because this adds on an additional responsibility. We're having to pay additional staff. We're looking for better equipment. We're trying to use the OWL cameras and try to leverage what the districts have and getting that credibility and recognizing and respecting cultural differences because that's not a priority in that village. The priority is to learn that lived experience of hunting, fishing, etc. But we started with one child. One family has recognized the massive difference here. Again, 3 hours. We're talking 1 hour per day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And with those results, this is going to something that will expand into something bigger. And so we're thinking in the next 2, 3 years, we should see that. Fingers crossed. And that's just not me. I mean, this is work that I'm doing
Definitely.
with a team of people.
Definitely, yes. Look at what's possible with language. You just really highlighted that.
If I could just speak to the fact that I think it's just a litany of things. I can't think of one thing. Well, there is one moment that stood out to me, and that was truly the worst time of my life. This was when I was residing in Arizona and I had lost my job. This was in the year of 2013. I crashed and I didn't know where I was going. Arizona was no longer an option for me. And I relocated to San Diego, California. And I ultimately was at a loss. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was so much perseverating on literacy, by literacy, reading and writing. And that was something I couldn't let go of, especially as it pertains to student. But I had no role in the schools. And so I asked the deaf community service providers in San Diego, DCS more specifically, to implement a deaf literacy camp. And I made it happen. It ultimately occurred,
I
right?
remember that.
Yeah, so I had to get funding. I had to reach out. It was a grassroots effort and a very successful one at that. I felt so good that I did something for the students. They didn't know who I was, and I didn't know them. I wasn't a teacher at that time, but that was something that really uplifted me. And in that moment, I realized these bad experiences are necessary in life because it shifted the trajectory and made me a better person. I was able to essentially adjust my understanding of now where I want to head based on that experience.
I think it's easy to really remember the challenges, those negative experiences, that every leader will experience and face for sure. Now, what I do every year, because I report to a board, I have a board of regents. And for my evaluation, they evaluate me. And I do a rundown of what has happened over the last year, and it's typically something that lots of leaders have to go through. This year, something I have to do is I have to sit and think about what my success looks like. Because my success is everyone's success within the school district. I'm not doing anything alone in a silo. So I have to think about what we've accomplished. And I often think about through this process, like, I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of my team. I'm so proud of all the things that we've accomplished. And simply put, in our area, we have a newborn diagnostic hearing center, not just a test, but a center. And we have one in Gallup, New Mexico, because it's a very big need. There's a huge underserved population there. And so I reached out to a director, and she was able to fly with this program. She got a huge grant, and now we have 7 centers across the state.
Wow.
And we are in the room when a baby is identified as deaf. So, how many people can say that? And so, we are so proud of that program taking off the way it did. Being a leader, well, I'm lucky that here in New Mexico, there's a lot of autonomy on how we use our funding and how we set up our programs. We're very fortunate here in this state. So, a thought can become reality very quickly. Thanks to a huge team that is making it work. But all those little moments I think are important to reflect on. It helps motivate us and also helps us kind of go, that didn't work. I'll try again next year.
I love it. And I love that all three of you mentioned children, community, staff. Your successes are truly collaborative and beneficial to the field at large. So, within this field, we may not often always think of a female for a leadership role, but you guys navigated that successfully. Do you feel like there's any sense of responsibility now for deaf female leaders? And what do you do with that sense of responsibility for the community and other deaf women?
That's huge. That's huge. I feel responsible for how we can better support and elevate young women who have dreams to move up the ladder or to really be in any leadership role. For example, like Clara said it perfectly, her dorm staff who saw her in 7th grade, that was a turning point moment for her. Many young deaf females don't realize they can do what they can, whatever they want to do. And so my thought is there is no camp out there for young deaf women.
We should have
They,
one.
we should have our own because the more that we're able to engage and interact, the more confident these young folks will become. They can dream bigger. They can be successful in life. It's really sad to see many, and I'm talking about Latina girls that I work with a lot in my community, and also the Philippines, Filipino girls as well in the schools for the deaf. Many of these individuals are so talented, but they don't want to do certain things. And so I realize we got to respect their cultural values. They have a heavy emphasis on the home environment. They value the home. And so it's not my role to change those values when I am not able or I don't practice their cultural way of living. So I want to see more individuals that come from these communities be in these leadership roles so these young women can look up to people like them in these leadership roles, which will help feed that energy and that inner fire to help elevate their cultural pride so that they can be a leader and value their culture. They don't have to pick one. So I really recognize how that can be such value to the group, to the community. Can we make that happen? I don't know.
I want to say yes, Melissa saying.
This is Jennifer. We do have responsibility, but I think it's more of wanting to be a good leader and a good role model. And it's not just for girls, but for boys as well.
Yeah, true.
I think young boys are very impressionable, and seeing women in leadership roles impact them in their future ability to see women in those
That's a
roles.
really good
It
point.
it legitimizes women in these roles. And so in my view, I want to have a good relationship with all students, girls and boys, also with staff as well and the adults. So my sense of responsibility is huge. It is for any leader, but it's huge for me. And am I a perfect leader? I'm not. Some days I'll be like, oh, I should have handled that better. But being a reflective leader is important and modeling that, saying, hey, yesterday I didn't behave the best way. I wish I had done this. It really helps elevate the students that are watching you and they'll become leaders themselves.
I do think I have an additional sense of responsibility being a community leader as well. So, in the educational field, I'm looked at as a one stop shop for resources throughout the state. And so I'm bombarded with questions. And the same thing with the community, those that are trying to run programs, they're looking for that support. And so I bear in the back of my mind that we are a massive state, but a small community. And it is a big responsibility to show that we are child centric, children first, students first, even if the student prefers both listening and spoken language as well as ASL. We have to demonstrate that we will continue to support those students just the same. If they have amplification, if they use devices, we will still to support them. Even though I am a strong deaf person that uses sign language, I will support a student that uses a device. We are all here to see that child thrive and to ensure that that occurs even in the district. I think that's something that we should shoulder, that the family is acquiring ASL, that we have acquisition for the child themselves. And these are skills that I am very much aware of so that they feel that sense of support. Even those students that might prefer to access just listening spoken language 100% of the time, but they'd like to take maybe supplemental classes, providing that sense of support. So that's just something else that I've been observing here in the state of Alaska.
Mm. So, this series is called Lead Different. And I feel like without asking you all this question about how you all lead differently, you have already shown how you all lead in different ways. And what I am getting a sense from all of you is that you lead with your hearts. You lead with a sense of thinking of others. And this is not something that people automatically do. The traditional leadership style that is seen in mainstream society has been broken by you all. You all are creating new pathways as deaf female leaders. No doubt about that. Girls and boys both will be able to look up to you all, and you are inspiring them. You're giving that spark of hope. So I would love for you all to wrap up with a thought of what it means to you all to lead differently. You've already mentioned it a little bit, but what is something that you are proud of doing and that you will continue doing in your leadership role that's perhaps a different style that other people expect?
Well, lead with people, doing that with the community, side by side. You don't go into it alone. It is my belief that you do it together. So you lead in circles, right? Essentially revolving circles as we engage, we interact, and we do things together. It's not linear, right? Horizontal. It is truly circular. And our roles and the way in which we face them will continue to evolve, but it really boils down to relationships. Every relationship is different, and I honor them each accordingly. And I always know that everyone has their story, and they have to feel first valued, second heard. And that is something that I stay true by. And the goal in which, in terms of striving for that, getting there together, it's not linear, it's not black and white. We will meander down the path together to reach that sense of success, whether it may be a small step or a large step. We're doing so together, and everyone feels valued and important along the way.
Leading with other people. I love that.
I have a strange sentence. In Santa Fe, our motto is the city is different. The city is different. The city is different. I mean, truly. And I feel like even in ASL, it holds true as you sign it. It's a different vibe. We have different values of culture and community. You can feel it in the air, right? The Adobe. And I think that's reflected in my own thoughts, my own vibe. I have a love for humanity. And if you don't embrace that, you will truly struggle, right? Humans are messy, including myself. I'm messy. Recognizing that and, in fact, appreciating that. So there's a group of superintendents that gathered, and one mentioned that people always asked if they liked their job. And honestly, that is a question that we're constantly asked, right? I don't know if you guys have that same question. I respond with, I love my job. Even if some days, right, that's not the case, I respond with that because every job has their days. But when I get up in the morning and I head to work, and if you could see my office, you would, oh my gosh, you could see we're in budget session right now. So some days are challenging, more challenging than others. But when I get home, the days I don't love my job, the day that I don't love my job, rather, that's that day I need to go. That's that day I need to leave the job, right? Some people are counting their days till retirement. That's not the way that I live. Everyone should be loving their job. And my job is to exude that radiance, to exude that love for this profession, to share those good vibes.
I've been thinking about this question. I am entering into a new era of learning to take a bench when I need to. That doesn't mean to give up or I'm losing a fight. It just means I'm sitting back because oftentimes I already feel not the pressure of working in a hearing dominated space. It can be lonely. And some days I just am, I have my days. And some days are really hard to keep my head above that. And some days, we'll have discussions about student needs or how to do hybrid listening spoken language and ASL. And, sometimes LSL will win over ASL. We just have to, sometimes I just have to sit back and let it go and just see if that child actually does succeed with the data, and then come back to the conversation with the data to back up my point and say, you know what, maybe we need to change this. It's I'm already defeated often in a hearing dominated space. And so I am not alone, but sometimes in meetings, I look and see who's in the room. And if I am alone, I will pick my battles. Nancy mentioned something about relationships, and I want to say yes. When it comes to teachers or paraeducators, I always believe in relationships before anything. You need to build your relationship with students, build that trust, and then whether you're having a good day or a bad day, you fall back on that relationship. When you're a classroom teacher, the formula is the same. You're not going to be best friends with the students, but you want to have a solid relationship with the students, including people that you disagree with. As you know, within deaf education, there's a lot of disagreement about philosophy, but have that relationship. Make sure you bring their voices to the table. When you're having discussions about deaf education, bring those individuals, even though you disagree with them, have them come and sit and give their opinion. There's a lot of emotions today about politics, about things that are happening in the current administration, whether you like it or not. People are leaning one way or the other. Look at social media, look at the media, the newspapers. It's a lot easier to kind of go one way or the other. Our country is currently being run on emotion, frustration, anger, sadness, that wins the vote. And the same is true in the educational system. So we have to kind of go back to who is really suffering here. And that's the students. If we let the emotions get to me, or if we don't listen to people that we disagree with, the students are going to suffer in the end. The families don't get what they need in the end. So sometimes you just got to take a bench. Doesn't mean that you're failing. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's important to maintain those relationships overall.
There's a famous African proverb: when the elephant fights, the grass suffers. Are you familiar with that? So, who suffers in
Mm.
the end when things are so contentious, right? So, coming back to our why.
The three of you have really shared some great nuggets of wisdom today that I feel like me and anyone really could take and apply in our own personal lives, whether it's for work, relationships, families. A lot of the different thoughts that you all have shared today show a, a sacred nature to it. Not often do people make comments like you and often apply them in your lives as well. So I really appreciate your ability to be vulnerable today with all of us. And I hope that the number of deaf women leaders continue to grow. So thank you for the legacy that you all bring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.